Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Chin Music, a baseball podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Menson, alongside my co host, Andrew Lukuski. And as of right today, it is about 2 weeks left in the season, a little bit less than 2 weeks left in the season. A lot has happened since our last episode in terms of the Mets, the Phillies, the NL East in general, and baseball. So we'll dive into that for sure. But before we get started, any opening remarks for us?
We had to take a few months off because we were busy working on our ad deals. That takes a lot of time out of these podcasts. So, we had Howard Stern type deals that are coming our way. So we do apologize for the delay. But um, yeah, I look forward to a much more somber episode from your side of the screen.
Yeah. So I, the Mets have not been doing quite as good as they were the last time we left you guys. As a matter of fact, the Phillies clinched the NL East a couple days ago. So they now hold sole possession of the division from now until the end of the season. The Mets, meanwhile, as of yesterday, they held a 1.5 game lead in the third wild card, and they
Yeah,
lost.
it's still 1.5 over Arizona.
Okay, that's
I guess
that's
they
nice.
lost yesterday too.
So they are still 1.5 games over the next wild card. Also in the running for the wild card, you have the Diamondbacks. You've just said the Giants and the Reds are what I would consider still possible for any of them to make it, but clearly with about a week and a half, 2 weeks remaining, time's running out. So I'm praying that they can hold on, but there's after the baseball that I've seen for the better part of 2-3 months. Unfortunately, you can never quite count that out. So I will probably go more into detail about this team and what they've done if you're not already aware. But they have been a really, really bad team. Um, and you guys are unlucky that you didn't get to see me during the peak of that terrible, terrible stretch where I don't even want to classify it as a stretch because a bad stretch is like, oh, you lose like 8 of your last 10 or something. The Mets since June something or other, like right around June, have been like the third worst team in baseball. It's like the Rockies, the White Sox, and the Mets have been the three worst teams in baseball, and it's almost October since June. They've been one, and I it's a little ironic because last year the Mets were the best team in baseball from June onwards. So the pendulum has swung the other way, and they are clawing their way back into the postseason after what I had hoped would finally be the year that they break through and win the division, which they appear to only win every 10 years. So maybe next year. But for now, all I can ask for is that they make the playoffs, give me something to watch in October. And as we have been able, as you can see from any of the previous postseasons, any team can make it if they get hot at the right time, and any team can make a run if they get hot at the right time. So I'm just back to prayers over here. Like the talent's there, but they have a lot of work to do.
Um, Yeah, that's the optimist assessment. I think. I don't know what they got 9 or 10 games left. I don't know. The time to even get hot is getting short. I mean, if they sweep out a wild card series, I guess that does some work. But you can't. I don't know. You can't limp into the playoffs because even then, and especially they're most likely. I mean, I don't know. I think everything except for that sixth spot is pretty much set. So they're probably going to be flying to Los Angeles
Yeah. So
for
yeah,
that 3 game set.
I'll look ahead to their schedule. So they starting Friday, Saturday, Sunday is your last homestand. They're going to play the Nationals, which I feel
Should
pretty
be
good about. Just
should
taking
be an
care of
easy 2 out of 3.
should be. Then they go away to Wrigley Field Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for a 3 game set. Um, if you can, I feel like that's as long as you don't get swept, I'll be okay. Even if they lose the series, it's obviously not something you want to see, but just win a game and keep yourself in the running. And then they will be heading to Miami for a 3 game set to end the regular season. Any Mets fans listening to this podcast famously recall that the Mets had a similar end of the season against the Marlins way back in 2007, which is a dark, dark year for Mets fans. The famous collapse as they dropped, I couldn't tell you the numbers, but they lost a lot of games in a short amount of time to allow the Philadelphia Phillies to come in and snatch a division from them. So I personally will be at the final two games of the regular season in Miami watching the games. So you will hear firsthand from me if they somehow drop those games and miss the playoffs. Because if there's any team for the Mets to choke to, they always seem to choke to the Marlins. And I don't understand why, but the Marlins are consistently a team that the Mets are expected to beat up on, and they end up going like 500 on the season with them or something ridiculous. The Marlins. So I think I already did the math in my head. I'm pretty sure McLean is pitching, or he's supposed to pitch the 28th, and I think Sproat or Tong is supposed to pitch the 27th. So you do have the two rookies who are carrying the Mets right now on their back, carrying that rotation on their back, slated to pitch in those games. But um, yeah, I do not. Before we end this Mets part of this pod and go on to the Phillies, final words are just, man, I just need them to give me something to be excited about because I have suffered so much over the past couple months watching this team. They just came off losing 7 in a row. Yeah, nah, it's been bad. It's been dark. It's been ugly.
Only
And
thing that's going to be working in your favor is the Diamondbacks schedule for the last part of the season.
who do they
They
play?
Phillies, Dodgers, Padres.
Oh, okay. You know what? I did look at that because I just dropped Ryan Nelson, who I actually love. I think Ryan Nelson's been great for me. But I looked ahead because to see like who we would get starts in the playoffs, and I saw like Phillies and Dodgers.
Yeah,
I'm
he's
like,
perhaps pitch. He's
sorry,
there. They're playing the top two teams in the National League, and the Padres are four. They're playing three of the top five National League teams to end their season. And
yeah.
if uh, honestly, I'm fairly confident in the rest of the Phillies season, but we can get to that later. I'm fine with the Phillies tanking these next three games against the Diamondbacks and just let them get swept out. It's okay.
So moving on to the Phillies, actually, as we said, they are now they've clinched the NL East and they'll be certainly heading to the postseason. If not, as one of the teams with the bye, they're still battling it out with the Brewers and the Dodgers. It looks like I don't think the Padres have a chance of sneaking in there, but um,
I mean, the
yeah,
Dodgers mathematically have a chance, but they're like six up. It just has not, you know, is it, or it might be five and then I think it's five and then six with the tiebreaker. Oh, no, it's seven games.
oh, I
So,
didn't even think about the Cubs. Oh yeah, no, they don't have a prayer. Yeah, it's
so
literally yeah.
I think the top five spots are pretty well locked in place right now. I don't know. The Brewers are pretty good. I don't know, so it's 93. So the Phillies are two back of the Brewers, three back in the loss column. So that's probably they're probably getting the one seed. Phillies are getting two. Dodgers are getting three, and then Cubs and I don't know what the split between the Cubs and the um uh Padres is, but I don't know. I think Cubs are pretty secure in their top spot.
Yeah, I'm looking at the standings right now. So it looks like the Cubs are about 5 games, 5.5 games ahead of the Padres. So
So everything but mathematically done for. Now they would have to go on a pretty bad streak for the Cubs to make that or Padres to make that up. So I'm I'm fairly confident in saying those top five spots are locked in that order.
yeah,
I would love to be wrong, but I I don't know. Um, I have since the clincher on what's today Thursday. I guess it was Monday night. I have tuned out a little bit to take my pre postseason break from baseball because it's going to give me gray hairs. Um, I don't need to go into a ton of things that I think have gone right. They've won 91 games. Obviously, things are going well. I'm instead, because I'm a Philadelphia pessimist, going to talk about the things that concern me, and that I'm, worried about another first round exit again. Um, Trey Turner obviously I think even the people who tend to worry are downplaying this problem. He's supposed to be back within the week. I think they're hoping to get him back for a few games as a tune-up. If you don't know what happened, he tweaked his um, I forget what he tweaked. I think it was a hamstring. Um, about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks now. It was grade one. Play the game. Um, any leg injury other than something that keeps you out for a day is cause for concern. So I have massive, massive concern about that, because when he got hurt last year, and I know that was worse, um, he did not run. He was hesitant to take the extra base and steal and run hard on a ball that could be an infield hit. And all of those things matter significantly more in the postseason, especially in shorter series. A run or two could seriously make a difference. So that's concerning for me. Bohm has also been on the IL too, although I think he'll be back within the next day or two. I don't really see any concern for him. He had assist, and they just didn't want to leave his roster spot open, I guess, for a couple of days. So not a problem with that. I have a massive problem with the $170 million man named Aaron Nola. Um, that man cannot step on the mound in a playoff series unless the Phillies are up by 15 or down by 15. He is the 2025 version of Taiwan Walker. Um, I just can't. I know that managers and teams use money as such a factor and say, we paid this guy all this money, he's got to make a postseason start. I don't care, uh, because he I cannot see a world where this guy makes a playoff start that goes well this year. I don't know. I have some hope for next year. I think that he's done it for too long to just have completely fallen off a cliff this year, but it's clearly something's either not right in his head this year, or he's lost some kind of mechanical thing that has, you know, prevented him from being able to locate his pitches as well as he has been able to. So I would pitch Taiwan Walker in a game four in the NLDS, or no, I guess they won't need him in the divisional series, in the championship series, over Aaron Nola right now. Um, I'm a little bit Harper's heated up a little bit. I'm worried about some of um, the bats. I would like to see them go in to October much different than they did last year. I would like to see them go in and give. I forget who they're finishing up the season against, but whoever it is, like I need some serious offensive performance. I don't want to see any 2-1 or 1-0 games where your pitching wins you the game and you get a win. That's great, but the offense is going into what looks like it'll be the divisional series, um, feeling flat, because that's exactly what happened last year. It's what happened against Arizona in the league championship series 2 years before that. And as much as am going to I tend to discredit some stuff in 2022 because the Phillies should not have even been in the World Series. But again, the bats did not perform at all. They got no hit in the World Series. So every postseason, it has been the bats. So I would like to see a 2 to 3 game stretch where they really put it in high gear and get a double digit hits and see all the guys getting on base and everything's firing on all cylinders before um, for postseason series start. So we'll see. I will be leaving my detox within the next couple days. Probably I will start to pay attention again, but I need a little bit of time because, again, like I said, it'll give me gray hairs.
So it's interesting the point you raised about potentially starting Walker and Nola. I found this pretty interesting. So I just looked up. I haven't seen Nola's stats yet, but I do have Taiwan's last couple of starts, and they're actually not great. So I'll just give you a brief rundown. So dating back to we'll use we'll use his start at City Field as the beginning of his bad stretch, I'll say. That was
Sure.
4 runs in 5 innings. He then follows it up with a trip to Milwaukee. So granted, 2 two good teams, two good-ish teams. 5 earned runs in 4 innings. Goes to Miami. 4 earned runs in 6 innings, so not as bad, but still not a quality start. And then followed that up at home at Kansas City last week with 4 earned runs in 5 innings. So some quick mental math is saying he's not quite at a 9 ERA, but he's definitely in that like 7 range. And this is a better part of a month now. Now, granted, Taiwan Walker has done way better. If you consider his season as a whole, he's done way better than I would have expected. You would have expected. I kind of assumed he was dead weight at this
He's
point
about
in
a
his
four and a
career.
half ERA, right, this year, I think. It might be a little bit lower than that.
Better,
Although
yeah.
there's
He's around 417. So,
yeah,
um,
it's a better than league average pitcher this year,
yeah,
in terms of a
yes,
starter at least.
and before that, I mean, he was pretty much automatic for 2 to 3 run. Before that, actually, this only shows up. Well, he got starts, I would say, around July 8th, and prior to that bad stretch, he did not have one single start that he allowed more than 3 runs in. Granted, some of those starts were a little abbreviated, like 4 inning starts. You see a couple in there, but ultimately, even if you, I think, as a starting pitcher in today's game, if you can allow 3 runs over 5, like as a back end starter, the team's going to take that every time.
Yeah.
So all this is to say that he has been effective overall, but the recent results are a little bit concerning. Now onto Nola. He is such a tough case because you always want to afford pitchers that kind of grace when they are coming back from injury. He hadn't prior to his start in Washington on August. He hadn't pitched since May, so a roughly 3 month layover from injury, and then even prior to that, he did not have great stats prior to getting injured. So, but again, you don't know how much of that he's pitching through injury. He did have one very effective start against the Mets, of course, when he threw 6 shutout innings. And prior to that, he kind of the only start I would say was good was when he was home at Washington. That was a quality start, 2/6. So Nola's an interesting case, especially because his pitching profile is not one of a overpowering strikeout. And not that he's ever really been that. Even during his prime, I wouldn't classify him as a strikeout pitcher. He was definitely more of a finesse guy as opposed to blowing you by with 100. But it is definitely something to note whether the injuries are simply piling on. I mean, he was the picture of durability for such a long time for the position. But it's even, and I'm looking now, even just trying to see like trends wise, like he's still keeping the walks in check. If anything, it's like death by 1,000 cuts in terms of the he just gives up a lot of singles
He
or
gives
base
up
hits in
home
general.
runs is
Yeah.
what he
So
does.
okay.
He lets up some singles, and then there's a 3-run home run.
Yeah.
It's the problem every time, is if it starts to spiral a little bit, then it forget about it. And the so I'm doing some basic mental math here. He'd be if he pitched a full season, he'd be behind where he's typically in strikeouts. He's had one, two, three, four, five, six 200 strikeout seasons. So no, I would not classify him as a strikeout pitcher. But he's not getting as many, and he's not getting them when he needs it. That's the problem. Is more that if there's two guys on and two out, he's he's not getting a strikeout there. Um, he's letting up, like you said, a single, or he's gonna leave a meatball over the plate that is hit for a 3-run home run in the Toyota Rav fourth inning. Um, the stats on that alone are actually fascinating. Um, I'm going to look at that and let you respond to me for a second. I should, I know Walker's had a bad stretch. Um, I certainly agree, but Nola's injury was a leg injury, and so I'm typically like absolutely with pitchers. There's a grace period. Um, but it was not with Nola's arm, and his velocity's been down this year, and I don't know. It seems to be more than an injury thing this year. I don't really know why. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. So one last thing I wanted to touch on, at least before we go on to our next segment, was something that I saw the other day. So, if for those of you who aren't familiar, the Phillies tomorrow are planning to do a piggyback strategy with their rotation. They're going to have Walker start the game, and they're going to have Walker Bueller follow him with the hope that those two can combine for 9 innings. So, I was curious, not just on that plan in general, but if you would endorse that kind of plan, if granted, if successful. For like a postseason start because ideally, like you said, you would prefer Walker over Nola in a vacuum. But the potential for a Walker, sorry, Walker, Taiwan Walker, Walker Bueller, kind of tandem for like a genuine playoff game, or is it a viable option for a playoff series?
I mean, it's a viable option, I think. I perhaps more have more faith in that than I should because the Phillies did that with Noah Syndergaard a few years ago. They didn't do a full back-to-back with the starters, but Syndergaard pitched against the Braves in the elimination game in 2022 in the National League Division Series, and he actually pitched really well. And the Braves were playing better than any team that the Phillies are going to play in the postseason this year in 2022. That was when, if I'm not mistaken, all their guys had career years that year, or was that 23? That
No,
they were won
it
like
was
104 games or whatever it was. All of the top five guys in their order had like 25 home runs and 90 RBIs, and Noah Syndergaard of all people, who was kind of falling off a little bit after his departure from New York, pitched 4 innings of one-run ball, and if Taiwan can start the game and do that, and Bueller comes in for 2 or 3 innings after and lets up maybe even 2 runs, you get 7 innings of 3 run pitching from those two guys combined. And that's more than enough. It should be more than enough. Also, Aaron Nola this year has allowed 15 hits and allowed 3 home runs, not even just runs, home runs in the fourth inning this year. And he's pitched in the fourth inning like 12 times. If that actually, it might even be less than that. So um it's just entertaining. Um to oh wait, no, sorry. He's pitched in the fourth inning. Um, oh no, sorry. Stat is being annoying. Never mind. Anyway, that proves my point. So maybe Nola starts and pitches 3 innings, and then Bueller can come in. Um, I s- unless he shows something in his last two starts, and they would have to be honestly for me to even consider it. It'd have to be 6 innings, 2 runs or less, and 8 to 10 strikeouts. Like I need to see that he's back on. I need to see he's back on that. I don't know. I don't think he will be. But to long way of answering your question, I think it's a viable option, not the greatest option. Um, it's serviceable, I think, for those guys. And Bueller had an okay start. Again, I know it was against the Royals who have had some struggles, but they have some good bats. If it was just him, if he throws 5 innings of one-run baseball in the playoffs, sure, that's fine with me.
Yeah. So now I want to transition to what I want to call our fantasy award season. So, granted, these will be a little similar to the MLB awards, or who we think deserves the award, but I want to do some more so in a fantasy context. So, just like to break that down a little bit. So, I think I value steals way more in a fantasy context than I would in a real life context. I also don't care how the player's team is doing to factor into fantasy awards, and
Hmm.
I directly care about their numbers, and specifically the numbers that they have put up for that count for scoring categories in our fantasy league. So I am actually gonna go back on something that I had put originally in my notes. So originally I had Aaron Judge as the de facto MVP. I didn't think I had to think much of it. Um, but looking looking back, I think my pick right now would actually go to the Mariners backstop Cal Raleigh, and I'll tell you why. Um, I think, Grant, Aaron Judge is the best fantasy player in the sport. He's the best hitter in the sport. Um, I think that's a given. I don't think that needs to be discussed much. Um, but my point comes more so from a positional value standpoint. When you consider the production fantasy production you get from catchers, um, it's non-existent. Like, and Grant, I mean, actually looking at this year, seems to be a better year for catchers than most, I would
Yeah.
say. Um, but let me just tell you in comparison how much better Cal Raleigh has been than other catchers. So we are going to combine the stats of, if you take the stats of the second joint second most homers, which would be Shea Langoliers and Hunter Goodman. These are how they compare. So Cal Raleigh has 56 home runs. The combined tandem of Langoliers and Goodman has 60. Cal Raleigh has 14 stolen bases. Shea Langoliers and Hunter Goodman have a combined 8. Cal Raleigh's OPS is about 100 points higher at 945 than what is essentially a combined 845 OPS between the two. Cal Raleigh has 118 RBI compared to 155 RBI of the second and third best catcher in baseball combined. And Cal Raleigh has 104 runs compared to 139 combined runs of the second and third best catchers in baseball. So when I look at that, the fact that you are essentially getting not equivalent, because I think anyone would still take obviously the two combined seasons if you could combine them into a player, but the fact that you are getting um, close to production that is equal to the best other two catchers in baseball in one is absurd to me. And he is, like I said, he clears them by 100 points in OPS. That's like that's not nothing. Like the difference between 800 and 700 OPS is a very good bat to a bat that is literally league average, if that. So when I and especially like and he definitely makes an argument for best value as well. Um, but it's just crazy to me, and this really puts into perspective how absurd his season is, not just for a catcher, for any player, but in the context of a catcher, you'd be hard pressed to find any other player that is that much better than their competition at their position.
I think that's a really good way of looking at it, especially from the standpoint of a catcher, because it's not a, you know, most of the full-time catchers do not have another position with them at least listed through fantasy. So if you're investing in a guy, um, that's the guy who's taking up that spot and who stats will count. You don't have a lot of interchangeability there. So somebody for be able to contribute that much for a full season adds a ton of value to that slot. At, because of that, because of the way it kind of locks you in. Um, most of not most, a lot of other guys who have really good seasons, um, they'll have some other positions maybe that you can move them around into. He Raleigh does not, and I think to your point about Judge, um, Judge has had a fantastic season, but he's also not the only outfielder you need on a team. Um, you have other options for that, and other people to contribute for those slots. Um, if Cal Raleigh's not your catcher, then you're losing a ton of production at a spot that you only have the option that's on your team. That's a super roundabout, nonchalant way of saying I agree with your assessment and the way that you got to that assessment.
Yeah, and that's I think that's ultimately what did it for me, because I was just looking at overall seasons and how they compare, and like Aaron Judge's season is still light years ahead of anyone else, especially from an OPS standpoint. But it like if you were to compare Aaron Judge and, yeah, I'm gonna say Juan Soto, like they are close enough in the stats that I've already listed: runs, home runs, RBIs. They're all like relatively within the same realm. And then Juan Soto has 33 stolen bases to Judge's 12, which does matter in a fantasy
Sure.
season. So I think that ultimately, and then even if you go down the list further to just like hitters, like Kyle Schwarber, we haven't mentioned, who, granted, I think would have a better candidacy if he had a position besides DH. But his season is like still otherworldly. 53 home runs, 128 RBI, 106 runs. Like Shohei Ohtani, another definitely like um worthy candidate. Steal numbers aren't as high this year, only 19, but another 50 home run. He could honestly get to like 145 runs with 100 RBI, which is unreal. There's a bunch of guys you could go on and on, but I think all this is to say that if you had to get rid of Aaron Judge and bring in another player tomorrow and keep your fantasy hopes alive and keep your team intact, you could like get 95% of what production Aaron Judge had with another player, or even two players that aren't elite could reproduce Aaron Judge's stats in the aggregate. But if you lost Cal
Absolutely.
Raleigh tomorrow, like good luck. You're at bare minimum, you're getting the best case scenario, you're getting somebody that replicates 60% of what he can do.
Hmm.
And that's if you get that very next one player. So that would I think we're both in agreement as to MVP. So another one we wanted to do was most overpriced. So for reference, we do auction draft in our league. So every player is assigned a dollar value, corresponding dollar value to basically go to open auction, and whoever has the highest bid wins. So I really wanted to do a pick that wasn't the most expensive player. But at the end of the day, I think that the absurdity of it, and I don't think I even like the most elite players and their price tags, nobody has been as so dismal as to make them um, to put them over this player. So my pick for most overpriced is going to go to Ellie De La Cruz, who was drafted at a whopping value of $79. So for reference, so you guys understand, um, Ellie De La Cruz, if you wanted to spend his money elsewhere, you could have gotten yourselves Aaron Judge at $60, and then a $20 player such as, let's see here, Junior Caminero. So that would have been you could have gotten Cal Raleigh, actually. You could have gotten Cal Raleigh and Aaron Judge for the price of Ellie De La Cruz, which is insane. And Ellie's not having a bad season. Ellie is having a pretty prototypical what we've come to expect from Ellie De La Cruz. He's going to hit 20 home runs. He could get to 40 stolen bases. OPS is about 750. He's got the runs. He is going to get close to 100 RBI. He is a good fantasy player. Like, by all means, he's a good fantasy player. But when you look at the sheer price tag that he came with, it was crazy in March, it was crazy in July, and it's still crazy now.
For
Um,
reference now, since you just gave Ellie's numbers, Geraldo Perdomo is might finish with 20 home runs and 100 RBIs this year, and 26 stolen bases. And I have no idea if he's even on a team right now. I'd imagine he probably is.
yeah, he
Um,
was on Ant's team. I can go bring up what he was drafted at if he was not drafted.
so,
So
and
yeah,
that's a comparable season. And his OPS is actually 850 this year. So
so actually I did not realize he was having that good of a year. Wow. But yeah, that just goes to show you that in terms of the replacement dollar per replacement level production, it's crazy.
it would have
And
cost $0.
it just blows my mind. Like and we can both speak to the fact that when that auction back and forth was happening live, it was just kind of like, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
But ultimately,
that was
sometimes
shocking.
sometimes you got to get your guy, even if it comes at the cost of almost 25% of your draft budget. Um,
For a guy
but
that's certainly not going to be kept next year, although I guess I can't say that for certain.
if he gets kept, then we'll have an emergency pod and just rip him to shreds because I can't even imagine. Um, but yeah, so I guess
I
yeah.
I got mine now, and this sort of was funny. This was actually slightly. This was suggested to me by Logan because I was going back and forth a little bit about a couple of guys, but Logan was furious about himself making this pick. I'm gonna have to go with Mookie Betts, who was drafted at $53 this year. Um, who is not having a Mookie Betts season at all. And I think some of Logan's problem was Logan obviously predominantly had him start at shortstop, but just 92 runs, 19 home runs, 78 RBIs, only 8 stolen bases too, and a 739 OPS, having a worse year than Ellie De La Cruz actually. um, that's the measuring stick now. Um, I just that's a premier player at you know at the position of shortstop where there were some good players this year. Ellie being one of them. Trey Turner's had a good year too. Lindor's obviously a good option, and Logan paid quite a bit for him and ended up actually trading him to I believe it was you, right?
He's currently he wants his ring. So yeah.
Right. Um, so I that one was a pretty big overpay. Although overpay, not overpay, overpriced. Because honestly, at the beginning of the year, $53 based on what some of the other guys are going for, and having typical expectations for Mookie Betts was not outrageous. Looking back on it now, it was probably not a great pick. You went the way of saying, Ellie De La Cruz was ridiculous from the start. He could have had a Babe Ruth like season, and some people, myself, would have said that 70 whatever it was, 70 something dollars was still too much for him. So I think Betts is overpriced looking back. Um, and I had as a second option, although he's actually had a better season than I thought he did. Matt Olson, because Brad paid quite a bit for him. I forget the
It was
exact amount.
40 something. It was in the 40s.
I thought it was close to the 50s actually. Um, oh yeah, it was only 40. So never that there was a reason I didn't totally go with that one. I thought he got drafted for a little bit more, and he's had a fairly good season now that I'm looking at it. So I'm going to retract that pick, and I'm glad I went with Mookie Betts. There was a while where Olsen was not playing well at all,
Yeah, he was bad. He
um,
was really
and
bad.
it was a long stretch. It was like July, he kind of turned it on a little bit.
Yeah. He definitely there was a point where Brad had like 4 first basemen and they were
Yeah, and
all
he was
bad.
really like he was actively considering, I think, dropping Matt Olson because he was proving nothing. He was proving no help.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna skip ahead to I think what I want to do our last one before we go to our final segment. This is the award that I've coined the Toga Award, as also known as the one who got away. So clearly, the teams that we draft are not the teams that we stick with. Um,
Especially in this league.
especially in this league where trades happen galore and whatnot. So, my team personally, I think I have to give my award to the aforementioned uh, tr- oh, trade marker of the Schwarbomb, Kyle Schwarber. Um, and let me talk for a little bit about this. So I got Kyle Schwarber for $31. I was very happy with that price. And granted, I do think the DH only positioning does factor a little bit. But at the end of the
Absolutely.
day, for $31 to get a what was even disregarding anything this year, getting a premier slugger who was in his early 30s, who's guaranteed to hit 40 plus and walk a bunch and drive in runs for a top line of the MLB, I would have taken that all day for $31. Now he started the season off really, really good. And someone else came calling and said, "What's it gonna take?" And let me look back at that trade. So, um, the trade was Kyle Schwarber, Jorge Soler, and Ryan Pepio for Vlad Jr., Ozuna, and Taj Bradley. So that trade basically boils down to, um, well, actually, I traded Ozuna for Framber Valdez. So, uh, to me, that trade boiled down to Schwarber for Vlad Jr. and Ozuna. And then I traded Vlad for Betts and Logan Gilbert. It's a mess, as you can tell. Point is, I think I underestimated even for Kyle Schwarber standards the type of season he was going to have. And it pains me to say this. It pains me a little less knowing that he's going to leave next year. But um, he's had an unreal season, and as somebody who is hopeful to end my championship drought and claim the first championship for myself in this league's history, I would sure love somebody who hits 53 homers and drives in 130 RBI right about now. So he's the Fisher Price Slugger Toga of the year. And hopefully he's not coming back next year because I know he's getting kept. But
Yes, he is getting
maybe
kept. Yeah.
maybe one day. But
Yeah, for $36, absolutely. He was the first keeper I had. And also, I am going to mention this does not need to be a segment, um, but I need to dispute you before I give you mine. Um, there has yet to be a time in this run, and I'm going to consider the run since Harper got here, that the Phillies have never let a guy go that they wanted back ever. Remuto came back. They got Wheeler done. Um, Last year they got Nola. So I'm not all that concerned about him coming back. And because if he leaves, it means he's getting a ridiculous amount of money that I might have even considered to be an overpay. And I don't really consider athletes getting overpaid all that much. My Toga award for the year is Logan Webb. I was iffy about this deal when I did it, but I needed a bat really bad at the time. So this deal we did with Chris, who was on the show a long time ago. I traded Logan Webb and Willie Castro for Grant Holmes and Corey Seager. At the time, Grant Holmes was having an okay season. It was better than okay. It was a little bit better than league average. So I was getting a guy that I thought was going to give me, 6 innings, 3 runs not every single start, a lot of the time, and could possibly reach to a little bit something better. And Corey Seager's had a fairly good year, actually. He was a rental. He's going to cost me too much to keep, but he's had a fairly good year. About a week after that trade, Grant Holmes went on the IL and is getting surgery. He will not even be back, I think, till probably mid next year at the earliest. So I lost the pitching that I received back from that deal off the bat, and Webb has continued to have a fairly good year. His last month, he's been a little bit, he's got a 4 ERA, which by his standards is bad. Um, but it's better than having a guy who's on the injured list. So that's my trade. That's my trade, and that's my guy that I wish I had not dealt. And I know for a fact that Chris is going to keep him because I only drafted him for $26, which hurts even more because he's going to cost $31 to keep next year, and he's a perennial, probably top 10 Cy Young finisher in the National League.
yeah, the fantasy season, there's a lot of hits and a lot of misses. But that's just a couple of the misses that we've had respectively, and that's
Oh
that's
yeah,
just the, that's just the name of the game. Um, so
that it is.
I think that wraps it up for our fantasy awards. If you wanted to lead us into our last segment today.
Yeah, so I proposed this one specifically because I wanted to share my thoughts on it. So the last couple years since this new playoff format has gone into place, the top two teams in each league are I'm gonna put rewarded in quotes with a bye. Some people see it as reward, some people don't. And this seemed to be more of a thing the first year where pretty much I think it was 3 out of 4 of the top teams who got the bye lost in their first series. Last year it was less of a problem. I think the Phillies were the only one that actually lost after the bye. So I wanted to propose a discussion on whether we each see the extended time off that teams get now as a problem. I believe it's 5 days now in between the end of the regular season and the start of the divisional series. I haven't looked at the schedule specifically for this year, although I think it's 5. Um, I am somebody who does not see it as a problem, and that is coming from somebody whose team got their ass handed to them in the divisional series last year after having 5 days off. I think none of that is an excuse at all because you got all the time in the world to get your pitchers ready to go, to get any guys who had any little tweaks or sprains or anything ready to go. Um, they are professional athletes who literally are paid millions and millions of dollars every year, and some who are paid hundreds of thousands of dollars by the at bat that they take. It's your job to be ready um, for that series. 5 days is a day longer than the All-Star break, and plenty of teams come out and win series right off the bat. There should not be any difference. Um, I don't believe I just that shouldn't be a factor. Time off should be a good thing in the postseason where you desperately want your top pitchers being able to pitch in the order that you want to make it. And those 5 days allow you to do that perfectly. And that's exactly what the Phillies got last year. And that's what every team that has these 5 days off gets. It gives you a chance to, again, like I said, check guys who maybe were feeling a little bit of pull in their leg or something in their arm. That's 5 days to get treatment without having to put guys on injured lists or call up anybody. That time should be a blessing. And I don't buy the excuse.
Yeah, I am pretty much fully in agreement with you on that, especially when you consider, like, as you said, this is like the there is not that much difference between this kind of buy and like the All-Star break. Like it's really a difference of 1 or 2 days. And no one is complaining about the All-Star break messing
Nope.
up their team mojo. It's just it's a bunch of bullshit. And um everything you said, yeah. The fact that you get to realign your starting pitching, which most teams like a lot of like I know the Mets, like I just said, like McLean is ideally their game one starter as of right now, and he needs to pitch in the last game of the season because they need him to pitch and so they can win that game. So
Which
if they
means he
have that
can't make a wild card series start.
right. That fully takes him out of the wild card start. If they decide to end up pitching him in that last day, if they need to, um, fully rested bullpens also huge, especially in the playoffs when you consistently need high leverage arms day after day after day. Um, yeah, it's like I don't understand, and it's not like these pitchers are sitting on their ass either. Like what every starting pitchers only throw 5 days anyway, and if they have extended, and if that, because some of them like with the off days they're sprinkled in, they'll end up like throwing on 6 days rest or something
Hmm.
insane. And in between that, they're throwing bullpens. They're doing simulated games. Like they are not sitting at home getting cold. Like these guys are out like preparing for the postseason. So to say that it puts them at disadvantages, uh, I think just a lazy excuse, and I have no other way to put it. If you lose, it's because you didn't prepare right, not because the formatting of the playoff system screwed you over. And last thing I'll say, um, if there was there was multiple times during the season, in the last couple months where I wish the Mets would have had a 5 day break because they were losing so much and were so out of it that 5 days to take a second and completely reset for a new series would have done wonders for them. And that can apply to any playoff team that is not ending the season on a heater. Like if you're dropping 2 out of 3 to a crap team in the last week of the series, like maybe you appreciate the fact that you get to reset and not have to worry about playing a game the next day when you don't think everything's in order and there's some like bad mojo going on with the team that you got to sort out. Like there is no downside to having more rest. I think any professional athlete would tell you that, whether that be MLB, NFL, NBA, etc. Like more rest is always good, and spreading out the games is always good. It's never taken in a bad context, except for when people complain about it in the playoff format. So at the end of the day, I don't understand um, the argument behind that getting messed up. I would stand by that 10 times out of 10 that it's a good thing. And if you play bad, it's not because of the bye, it's because your team just didn't do the right prep work.
So an interesting number that I just came up with, um, because Nick Castellanos was actually guilty of complaining quite a bit about that last year. And I hope he's gone in a few weeks. But anyway, so his salary for this year is $20 million. Um, this year he's going to get about 450 at bats, I think, because he's lost some playing time. Can you guess how much money he makes per at bat?
You said 20 million and 450 at bats.
Yeah, without putting crap in a calculator.
It's a little over 500K, right?
No, it's less than that.
50K. Sorry, I'm bad
Oh
about the
yeah,
math.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, I was like, no, it's not $500,000.
Yeah,
It's $44,444 at bat. So he's
yeah.
making over $100,000 a game. no excuse, none, absolutely none. If you lose, you got beat. It's the same. That's the same reason, or not the same reason. The same thing that I would say when they were complaining about the freaking shadows last year. Hit the ball. Like you know the shadows are coming because you know how the sun works and how it goes across the sky. Like that's how the world works. Prepare accordingly. When you take batting practice out on the field, there's going to be shadows too. So adjust your approach accordingly. It's the same thing. The the excuses about things that are not happening on the field are always lazy to me, no matter what it is, unless there are some personal issues that a player is going through that can be affecting their mental play. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about lazy things like, weather, the days off, um, the 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 expectations from media and fans. It's part of what comes with the job. That's why not everybody's fit to be a professional athlete. And if you can't adjust accordingly in those situations, you don't deserve to be one.
I think it's really the it's almost paradoxical why the amount that you see baseball players complain about external factors that hasn't like no basically no bearing on their performance. And then when you consider that like the Major League Baseball is, to my knowledge, like the only sport on the planet where the dimensions of the field you play on change like 30 times in a season. Like in the NBA, you don't have a court that's, the hoop is 3 feet higher than than your home court. So these players are used to playing like with a bunch of different conditions all the time. And despite being conditioned to do that their whole life, they still find some ridiculousness to blame it on, or anything but their actual performance, whether it be shadows, whether it be Alec Boehm complaining about parabolic microphones that have been in City Field since at least 2016. Um, just little stupid stuff like that. And it's not just Phillies, it's every player at one point or another makes a comment like that. And it's just so stupid. Like, you guys got to grow up. You're, like you said, professional athletes, you get paid more money than the rest of us will ever see in our entire lives, to play a game that all of us paid to play growing up. So
And
why
pay
are
to
you
watch you
complaining?
play. And we
I
pay to
pay
watch you play.
I pay a subscription to MLB TV to watch you play on TV, and I pay every time I go to a stadium. I pay parking and I pay a ticket fee to watch you play. So at the very least you can do is, if you suck, just like be transparent and take it like actually just like be accountable. And that's
Yep.
all I'm asking for.
Totally agree.
Um, but with that said, I think that's gonna wrap up our return episode to Chin Music, a baseball podcast. We will have some stuff coming out hopefully in the next few days about a schedule. Now that we're back into our regular fall semester mojo, we're gonna try to be a bit more regular with these, which we are guilty of had saying before. But for real this time, we have our setup back. We don't have any like summer nonsense jobs. We're pretty entrenched in our everyday lives at this point. So it's been really good to be back. I know I enjoyed filming again, and talking baseball as we head into the end of the pennant race. But
Yeah, me too. I get to be the one gloating about the team playing well now. You can go cry about Unky Steve, and he needs to spend more money.
Unky Steve spent enough money. The players just need to play better. But
Yeah, Unky Steve's gonna have to blow up the team next year if things don't go well.
and we will discuss that at length, depending on how this season plays out. But that's for another time. But once again, this has been a great episode of Chin Music Baseball Podcast. I'm Andrew Menskin with Andrew Lukutsky, and we will see you guys next time.